Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Strategic Frontlines. Today we have with us Ambassador Srivastava, retired, former India's ambassador to Iran, and the author of the much acclaimed book, Pakistan Ideologies, Strategies, and Interest. We have Lieutenant General VP Singh, AVSM, YSM retired. He specializes on national security and strategic affairs. We have with us Major General RPS Bhaduria, VSM retired. He specializes in counterterrorism and is currently Additional Director General of CLAWS. I welcome all of you to this podcast. And today we will be discussing whether the so-called US-mediated ceasefire between Iran and Israel will bring a dawn of peace. That is, have all the three nations either covertly, I'm not saying overtly, but covertly, learned the lesson that war is not the solution. Or there will be temporary peace. And this temporary fragile peace can reignite conflict. We will be discussing these amongst a lot of other things. But first, if we try to see the objective from the beginning, it has been twofold. Destruction of Iran's nuclear facility so that they cannot make bomb, and the regime change. As far as nuclear issues are concerned, both parties have a contrary view. US and Israel are confident that they have destroyed the facilities. However, recently a leaked assessment of the US DIA, that is the Defense Intelligence Agency, states that it may not be true and Iran's capabilities at best may have been deferred by some months. On the other hand, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei states that the attack did not do anything significant to Iran's nuclear facility. So actually the truth lies somewhere in between, and we are going to discuss those things. So my first question is to Ambassador Srivastava. There were views, and IAEA is also inquiring about the 400 kgs enriched uranium, which Iran says it has already taken out from the Fordo facilities before it was attacked. There are alleged views that, in fact, Iran may have already done a cold test with the help of the North Koreans. So I have two questions. Firstly, in your view, what nuclear policy Iran is going to follow, considering the views from Iran that it will continue its nuclear program? During the conflict, Iran had stated, in fact, they had threatened that they will opt out of NPT, that is Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, as also it will not allow the IAEA to supervise the nuclear program any further. Secondly, do you think that in order to prevent economic sanctions, they'll remain a covert nuclear weapon state like Israel, or they'll go in for a hard bargain to come to negotiation table? So there are a lot of issues, basically three: whether they will opt out from NPT, whether they will allow IAEA to supervise the nuclear program, and whether they'll come to the negotiating table as far as the nuclear issues are concerned. Your comments, please.
I think you have to bear in mind that after this exchange, there will be no appetite for cooperation with the international non-proliferation regime. In fact, the Iranian malicious has already passed a resolution asking for limiting the cooperation, for denying access to IAEA to the nuclear facilities. This, if you look at what has happened, the war has ended without any conclusive result. Iran retained the retaliatory capacity which was demonstrated in its attack on the US bases. Israel had militarily the upper hand. it is a fragile peace. Iran's problem remains there is no lifting of sanctions. They have no reason to cooperate. And your question whether, in order to avoid sanctions, they would try to remain a covert power, nuclear weapon power like Israel. The point is, there are already sanctions, and the sanctions are so strong that and so comprehensive that there's nothing left for, there's no incentive left. Now, there's a slight modification. President Trump has announced that China is welcome to continue import of Iranian crude oil. Now, whether this will actually mean relaxation of the conventional sanctions, or it is simply one-off statement by US President who was known to keep on making these announcements, that remains to be seen. But from Iranian point of view, that is not a solution, because because the earlier situation did not allow them to sell crude oil to other countries. Purchased by Chinese companies was limited to what are called tin pot refineries. Routing of payments was difficult. In fact, there was no known mechanism except for renminbi payments, which limited Iran's options, because they have import requirements from other third countries. So, given the outcome of the 12 days war and the fact that sanctions continue, and the fact that Iranian Majlis has already adopted a resolution asking for denial of access to IAEA, I do not think that there is going to be any talk or any hope for major relaxation unless the sanctions are lifted.
Yes, I think so. Iran will have a tough time ahead. But I would like to bring in now General VP Singh. General VP Singh, do you feel that this is a temporary peace and is not a sustainable one? I would like to know your views also. And I would also like to ask you, another question. What do you make of Pakistan Muni's closeness to US President Trump? Will it impact the Pakistan-Iran relationship, considering they have a long border with Iran? And in future, probably both countries will be suspicious of each other. So I would like if you could highlight both these issues.
Thank you, Dr. Roshan, firstly, for having me here on the show. I largely agree with Ambassador Srivastava when he outlined the scenario and, of course, the prospects of this peace. Of course, it is a fragile peace. And when you say it is a ceasefire, which is basically, it is a pause. And why is it so difficult for this ceasefire to sustain? Primarily, there are three major reasons. One, of course, is the stated position of both the states, Israel as well as Iran. They are such extreme positions that anybody who enters into conflict with those positions, how long can you carry on with the so-called fragile peace? The second, of course, the strategic trajectory that both have been following for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And of course, the final one is the desired end state. Like Iran is seeking obliteration of Israel. Israel is seeking absolute zero tolerance for nuclearization of Iran as well as its missile program. So these are such extreme positions, and so I would say ready for conflict anytime. I don't think this peace is going to last for very long unless there are some real breakthrough in terms of talks which can restrain Iran from going nuclear, which is seemingly very, very difficult now. And of course, on the other hand, for Israel, because Israel right now, I feel they are on the high. Basically, Iran always use their proxies to create problem for Iran. Oh, sorry, Israel. Israel has already decapitated, almost finished the Hamas and Hezbollah and other militias. So they feel little triumphant on that. There is a massive, massive destruction of these proxies of Iran. In addition to that, the strike that has taken place on the nuclear facilities has caused considerable amount of damage. It remains to be seen what is the actual content of this damage and how far back the program has been pushed back. Of course, it's a large debate. We can talk about it later. Coming on to your second question about Asif Munir meeting Donald Trump. Well, to be very honest, uh, it is because of the Trump that this kind of meeting takes place. Had it been any other president in the United States, this kind of thing would never have taken place. Yes, what is common there is that America always remained connected with the security establishment of Pakistan. They feel more confident, they feel more assured that if Pakistan army is with them, they'll be able to attain their short-term, mid-term, and long-term objectives. However, in this context, giving Asim Munir that kind of visibility, it speaks of some deeper interest. I can outline, say, about 3, 4 of them. One, of course, it is showing to the political establishment in Pakistan where do they stand. There is hardly any, I would say, legitimacy of the political setup in Pakistan. Two, Trump feels that his personal agendas, call it cryptocurrency agenda, call it mineral agenda, call it seeking some basis to punish Iran or any other person, or having a lookout towards China and Afghanistan, all these can be fulfilled by a person in uniform, like Parvez Musharraf did, like other generals did in the past. So to that extent, it is perhaps a repeat of the history in different manner. Of course, as far as Pakistan is concerned, they are absolutely gung-ho about it, and they are trying to equate it as some strategic victory. But I think in long run, this will not have any major impact as far as I would say the way beyond as far as Pakistan and American relationship is concerned. It is also causing a bit of doubt in China's mind as to which side Pakistan is tilting. I mean, you have a multi-billion-dollar CPEC in Pakistan, you can't defend it, and you are hobnobbing with America. So this riding in two boats is always dangerous. I'm sure Pakistanis know, and General Asim Munir knows it better than anybody else. Thank you.
I would just like to bring in Ambassador Srivastava for a short time before I move on to General Bhaduria. Ambassador Srivastava, you have written a book on Pakistan. So I wanted to know, what do you think about this? Because what is happening is, on one side, Pakistan, along with China and Russia, is criticizing Israel and having a pro-Iran outlook. On the other hand, the army chief with US is conniving against Iran. So this duplicity, what do you make of it, and how will this pan out in future? Ambassador Srivastava, you need to unmute your mic.
Roshan, the simple explanation is that Pakistan has stabbed Iran in the back. You know, that the invitation to White House had nothing to do with the domestic politics. Shehbaz Sharif doesn't have to be put down. The poor fellow survives on the mercies of Asim Munir. It's known to everyone in Pakistan. Cryptocurrency, again, you know, Pakistan is bankrupt state. Where does it have the money to buy cryptocurrency? Or there's a power deficit, it cannot manufacture cryptocurrency. Afghanistan is not an issue. US exited Afghanistan 4 years ago. Let me take you back to a testimony given by CENTCOM Chief General Kurilla on 10th June. This is just a little before the Israeli strike, which started on 3 days before the Israeli strike. And he said, there's an unprecedented, I'm quoting him, unprecedented opportunity to take action against Iran. And in the same testimony, he mentioned Pakistan as a valuable partner in fight against terrorism. He cited the instance of Pakistan handing over a terrorist who was accused of killing 13 US servicemen deployed at the time of American evacuation from Kabul in August 2021. It's very curious that he cited this instance. Pakistan for 2 decades took American money and undermined American efforts to stabilize Afghanistan. Both Osama bin Laden and Mullah Omar spent their last days in Pakistan. I'm sure the general knew this. So this instance which he quoted to claim that Pakistan is a valuable ally is basically to justify a decision taken for other reasons, and those other reasons are clear from his testimony, in which he said there's an unprecedented opportunity to fix Iran. So Pakistan has obviously delivered services, and it has already received payment for services rendered. You would recall that in the midst of Operation Sindoor, IMF extended $1.4 billion of fresh commitment under Climate Resilience Fund. This was in addition to $1 billion they gave under extended fund facility, which was an existing commitment. Now, IMF decision making is controlled by US, which has a veto. So obviously services have been rendered, and this is one small example of the way Pakistan has, which way Pakistan has acted. Pakistan closed 5 trading posts on Iran-Pakistan border on 15 June. This is just when he was going to meet President Trump. There's a historical, let me take you back to 65. During 65 war, Iran provided sanctuaries to Pakistan Air Force. During recent war, Pakistan slammed the door shut on Iran's face. So obviously, Pakistan has rendered services to US. There will be some discomfort in Beijing. There is also this issue of reaction amongst the jihadi constituency, and that is one reason why this decision is being played down within Pakistan, especially in the Urdu press, which is all that matters. But let's see how it goes forward. Pakistan Army has always loved the status of being the frontline state, and they sense another opportunity in case Iran's confrontation with the West drags on. There's a uncomfortable truce as of now, but this is not a permanent peace. So we'll have to wait for the contours of this relationship to come out. In the meantime, Pakistan, to its usual self, will keep on talking with a folk tongue, and it has supported Iran and the vote in the IAEA, voted with China and Russia. But what matters in Pakistan is what the army chief says. And army chief's statement and his presence in the White House, Pakistan's recommendation to the Nobel Committee to give Nobel Prize to President Trump, these are all indicators. They may not lead to anything, but these statements are not made without a reason.
Yes, and I'm sure Iran must be watching all these things. So let me get in General Baduria. General Baduria, I want to ask you about Iran and Russia relationship. They have signed a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty in Jan 2025. They are also supporting the Bushehr nuclear power plant, and in fact during the conflict they had warned about action being taken if that particular power plant was attacked. So, according to you, what is the major game plan of Russia and West Asia? Because after losing Syria, they would like to have an influence in West Asia. And how do you feel Iran fits in this game? Your views.
Right. Thank you very much, ma'am. And firstly, I'll start with that 400 kg enriched uranium, because by now it is well established that uranium was taken out before the strikes commenced. How and who tipped them? I personally feel there were a lot of chatter as it is that the US might join this thing and they would be attacking the nuclear facilities. So it did not take much of a assessment on part of Iran to take them out well before, right? And now this has been confirmed by even their vice president, J.D. Vance. Here, I want to highlight a very interesting statement I came across in the Russian reporting and their scholars when they were writing. They said Putin had said that let this enriched uranium come to Russia, he would keep it, and in case US breaches the deal, then he would return it back to Iran. Now, this was something very interesting, right? And this is from the Russian sources, right? Now we see that Iran has come out of, or they are likely to do that very soon from the IAEA cooperation, right? Now, this particular move, uh, I would see that they may have done it to escalate their nuclear program. Like what Ambassador said, it's a not even a thaw in the war, right? And there's been no conclusive result from this war. So therefore, and Iran is actually, their security depends on a nuclear weapon. There's no doubt about it, right? In case they had nuclear weapons, they would not have suffered so much. So that is a lesson that is, I mean, they would have learned, the population would have learned, right? So therefore, they may continue with that program, but very covertly, may not be immediately, may take some time. And here, the Russians may step in because Russia has, like you said, they provided the wherewithal for their Bushehr plant, and the Russians are seeing a what should I say, a opening that in case West puts a lot of pressure on Iran, sanctions them, then Russia can step in, and Russia wishes to be seen as some kind of a nuclear power. They have provided. Um, uh, uh, Provided us the assistance, they may do so for Iran also. However, what I wish to highlight here is they are not interested in Iran having a nuclear bomb. That they are very clear, because any bomb with Iran would destabilize the whole region, and we have seen what happens in case the countries are destabilized. Example of Syria, Iraq. There's a whole lot of migration which takes place. There's a lot of terrorism which takes place. So therefore, they'll be very cautious that Iran does not acquire the nuclear weapons. And like you said, after losing Syria, Russia cannot afford to lose Iran as well. And they will not forget that Iranians had given them drones for their fight in Ukraine. And there's an interesting fact that probably because of the sanctions, the Russians had transferred almost 1.8 tons of gold bars to Iranian in lieu for those drones. So that's how they had gone in making the payments. Now, like Ambassador said, that there were two goals, and both probably have been only half achieved, or maybe even less, right? One of them was the regime change. Now, regime change, in case it had taken place, it would have seriously threatened the Russian interest and also the interest of China, right? Because the whole dominance of US in the Middle East would have been established, and that would have impacted on two things. One is the investment. We are seeing that Saudis are saying that we'll invest trillions of dollars in US. So other countries also would have followed suit. And then on the oil prices, the ambassador knows it much better than me, that OPEC prices would have been then set by the Middle East countries without taking Russian interest into consideration. The other point I wish to highlight at this point is because we saw a little muted reaction from Russia, at least that is what the press was reporting. Now, this could be because of the Putin Trump uh, and I won't say friendship, but whatever is going on in Ukraine, right? I have heard Putin himself say that Trump is a very good. He praised Trump, and he said in case Trump is not under the control of the deep state, he would like to do business with him. That is his own words. I mean, I can quote him, right? And if you recollect in 2016, when the debate was taking place for the presidential elections with Hillary Clinton, both, of course, said that China is a main threat, but Clinton said that Russia is an existential threat, and China was only an economic and a military challenge to US. However, Trump kept harping on China and not Russia so much, right? So that Putin has not forgotten. And just to recall, Trump had called Putin before the US strikes. God knows what transpired between the two, but Trump did say that it was not because of the Ukraine war. My last point is that it goes without saying that Russia and China were cooperating, coordinating during this conflict, and a lot of their actions were well coordinated and looking after the national interest, which I think are kind of converging. So that is where I'll stop. Thank you, ma'am.
I agree with you, and you had pointed out a very good point about the deep state in US. I mean, we all know that the deep state in US works and how it works and how that is. I mean, we should have a debate about it in another podcast. But you, uh,
Yeah.
I think there is
Can
an
I
echo.
can I just
There's
add a
an
few
echo, I
things?
think. Uh, okay, so I will. I'll get General Singh. You wanted to comment something?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just adding a few points on what General Bhaduria just mentioned. You know about this 400 kg of enriched uranium. Where can it go and how can it go? I was just listening to this brief by a Joint Chief of Staff, and he outlined. He says it took America 15 years of close surveillance of all these sites to understand the design, the strength, and the difficulty of breaching these sites as and when America decides to do that. Because as far as this aim is concerned, the strategic aim to destroy Iran's nuclear facility, it has been there for very, very, very long time. So this is just to get a sense that like we are concerned about this 400 kg of uranium, America and Israel are equally worried and pursuing doggedly the whereabouts of this. And what I heard from that briefing and some other statement coming out from USA, that the work is already underway on two counts. One, to assess the damage that has been caused. That will give them a very fair idea as to how many years, months, or days program has been pushed back. And two, where all this material could have gone and what are the other places where this thing can go and they can cause the damage. Donald Trump made a very simple statement again a couple of days back. Somebody asked him as to what will happen if Iran develops a nuclear weapon again. He said, well, whenever Iran does that, whosoever is standing in my place will do the same thing what I have done. That's America is going to do the same thing. They will destroy it, damage it, attack it again. So that's a plain strategy of United States of America. Perhaps there is no any other idea or solution to come in over there. And of course, repeated position of both America and Israel, one liner that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, period. And they will go to the any extent, any limit to ensure that Iran cannot have nuclear weapon. just a point about this regime change. Well, right now, who is going to replace Ayatollah in case you want to take him out? The point that I'm trying to make is this, that notwithstanding the damage caused to the Revolutionary Guard and the leadership and other thing, the internal security arrangement of Iran remains fully intact, which is basically an instrument to control the population, number one. Number two, the celebrations that were there in Tehran yesterday or day before yesterday after Iran's strike on American bases in Kuwait was a testimony that perhaps now it is nation's desire to go nuclear, which becomes little complicated. If the leadership is trying to do that, it can be managed. But if the nation aspires to go nuclear and prepare to face the hardship, it becomes a difficult challenge. And I'm just contrasting it against the desired end state of both America and Israel, that Iran cannot have nuclear weapon. And the final point that I would like to make here is that, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead with your final point.
Yeah, so that possibility of regime change, if at all it happens, the possibility is from within. But as I just mentioned, that internal security arrangements are still intact, very, very strict. And perhaps right now, there is no possibility because the national sentiments are also in a different direction. I think those must be the factors, considering that they have decided not to tweak or rather play around with that idea and go ahead and see how things unfold hereinafter. Thank you.
I think you rightly pointed out, time will show how much damage is there to the nuclear installations, because there are contradicting views also coming out that the damage was not so much, and that the DIA itself, they had pointed out. So that put a question mark to it. And also, there are also views that Iran does not have to openly do that. They can always develop it covertly, or they may already have it, because they are a civilizational history and they're intelligent people. So we don't know where the truth lies. It's somewhere, because Israel also has nuclear weapon. They have also not told it. So we don't know what it is. That time will show what it is. But here I would like to bring in Ambassador Srivastava. Since we were talking about the regime change, and it is quite clear as of now that Iran's regime change is not possible in near future. If it happens like the way the revolution had built up, and that way. But I want to ask you, do you feel that Iranians themselves will do certain introspection and there will be certain changes internally? And also I wanted to ask you, do you feel that Iran's proxies have been destroyed, and now because of war and the economic downturn, it will be difficult for them to regroup? Or is it the other way around? So I want to know your views on that. And a small one, that will some changes take place in Gaza too?
Well, to take the last point first, I don't think there was any link between Gaza and Iran. And this was no less a person than President Biden, who had said at the outset of Gaza war that Iran had no hand in it. The relations between Hamas and Iranian leadership, it was there, but it was more of a symbolic kind of thing. Whether there will be introspection and change in Iranian policy, that has already begun, and that one clear manifestation is the decision of the Iranian malicious to prohibit any access to IAEA to Iranian nuclear sites. Whether this will lead to further steps, and the further step in this direction could be Iran walking out of NPT. We'll have to wait and watch. It also depends on the actions of the other side. If there is an attempt to engage Iran, it is not something which Iranians, which is irreversible. But that raises the whole question: was this war necessary? There was a lower cost option to constrain Iranian nuclear program. In fact, Iran had voluntarily accepted constraints on its nuclear program in 2016, and IAEA as well as EU countries, member states, have affirmed that it was not Iran which breached that understanding. It was President Trump who pulled America out of the nuclear deal. More recently, when the negotiations were resumed, America moved the goalposts. At one point, the two sides seemed to be close to an agreement, and the agreement was, 3.75% of enrichment. Witkoff, the chief American negotiator, had to deny it next day and said that it will be Trump's deal, and which is 0% enrichment. Now, coming to the situation after the war, both sides have taken positions and fallen short of those extreme positions. But in the process, these positions have hardened. How can America resume negotiations for, after making a strike, to go back and say whether it's a diplomatic deal is possible? This will be calling into question the whole military exercise. And similarly, for Iran to trust US again, the last time Israeli military strike was launched one day before, or I think 2 days before the sixth round of US-Iran diplomatic negotiations. And subsequent statements by President Trump confirmed that America was in the know of the Israeli strike. So I don't think there will be anyone in the Iranian establishment willing to put, to risk being again taken for a ride. So it's a very, very difficult situation. But let's hope that instead of slipping towards a fresh round of hostilities, the two sides can resume negotiations. Since America was a belligerent in the last round, perhaps this is a time for the UN to come forward. But again, it's a very difficult situation because in this round, IAEA has also lost credibility because IAEA was negotiating with Iran, and Iranian nuclear facilities were attacked, and IAEA has kept quiet on that. It made, tangential statements that in case there's an attack on Bushehr, that was not the issue. The issue was when this statement was made, they were continuing Israeli military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities to which IAEA had been given access. So there's a huge issue. Who's the honest broker who can bring the two sides to resume negotiations?
Yes, that's very correct. I would just like to ask a quick question to General Baduria regarding China and relationship of China and Iran. We know that China and Iran have signed a strategic treaty, and one of the reasons for Iran not closing Hormuz was China's major trade passing through that. And China had also brokered a peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia in the past. So, what are your views? What will be the China's future trajectory in West Asia, and how will how Iran will fit into it? General Baduria, you need to unmute your mic.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. My first starting point would be that there was a news item that in May 25, China and Iran, they have an overland rail corridor, and a train had moved over there just about 15 days before this. So there were a lot of speculation, probably some military armaments or something would have been shifted to Iran. But that whatever reports have come out, that China did not provide any military support to Iran during these 12 days of conflict. Right. However, what they did was they condemned the whole thing, which everyone did. They said there should be de-escalation and ceasefire, which all other countries did, and they said we are for diplomatic mediation. Now, what China was doing was that they were protecting their economic interest and avoiding the regional instability. Economic interest, we all know that energy flows through Strait of Hormuz, and they didn't want any disruption in that. And regional stability, like Russia, they were also concerned about what happens in case Iran totally goes under, and there are a lot of you know migration, terrorism, and things like that. And the investment. Because let's not forget in 2021, they had announced that they will have $400 billion worth of investment in Iran, and it was to be a 25-year strategic partnership where the economy, energy, these were the main drivers of this partnership, and limited military cooperation. So that is what was said right then, right? So what we have actually seen is a very strategic, pragmatic approach adopted by China. uh, Russia was a little more bolder, but China was absolutely pragmatic. So maybe that they have limited ability to shape the outcomes. That could be one reason. The second could be that China wants to be everywhere as far as the economy is concerned. Belt and Road Initiative. Uh, then they want to be diplomatic mediators and things like that. But they do not want to get entangled in the conflicts. So that is something which has come out in this particular 12-day war very, very clearly. So therefore, one assessment could be that neutrality may not always be viable in this era of sharpened regional fault lines, right? Because everyone was looking up to China because they are rising power and they are challenging US. So they were looking for China to be a little more active and do something, which they did not, right? So therefore, Iran rightly was very, very, what should I say, they were not very happy with Chinese action and also Russian action. They were in fact feeling let down. Now, since I am a military person, I cannot but comment on the military operations which were carried out. I just want to make three important points which we should in fact take into consideration. First is the propaganda and the perception management. This has come to the fore from this war, from the wars in Hamas and in Ukraine. So we have to be managing the propaganda war. Iran is saying we have won the war. They're telling their own people that we are the ones who have won, right? Then perception management. That little doubt about where is that 400 kgs of uranium, whether the damage has been done as much as the US is claiming. There are different narratives. So that will go on, and we'll have to be very, very quick on this perception management. Surprise and deception. What a master was also alluding. See the way the whole thing has gone about. Someday he would say, no, I will not do this. IEA giving some statement that they've enriched 60%. No, they have not. Israel making some. So all this was actually a movie. It wasn't serious, this thing. They were all lulling Iran and other partners into believing something, and which they ultimately did. That is, even that news that MAGA is divided. I really don't know whether MAGA was divided. Right? We will have to wait and see how things go forward, and then only we'll come to it. This thing. The next point is now the time is for non-contact kinetic force, right? That means you are not coming physically in contact with each other, however, causing huge destruction and wanting to achieve both your military and the political goals. So that's a new kind of warfare. Uh, After Ukraine, even in our case, we had started believing that the time for short wars is over. But I don't think that is the case. Each war has a different character, and in this particular war, I see it was only 12 days, huge destruction. Our Operation Sindhu, very less, right? So therefore, the short wars, I think, would be fought when there are nuclear weapons and when two powerful nations, like in case of India, China, or even Pakistan supported by China, right? So we cannot afford, the world cannot afford to have such long wars as we are seeing in Ukraine. And my uh, last point is, and that I think we all know it, but it gets reiterated every time, that the whole geopolitical calculations over the security needs of other countries. Like in this case, the geopolitical calculations of Russia, China, even US. US didn't want to get entangled because they were going to be distracted from Taiwan Strait. They were at fault, right? So therefore, what is the lesson for it? In case we face conflict on our, say, northern border and or western border, there's possibility. Uh, how will our partners react? That assessment we have to keep updating it all the time. Thank you very much.
I think sometimes it also feels that everything is staged. So we need to see how repercussion, what it happens, how the things goes off. But we have got a lot of questions, so we'll take few questions. Mr. Pawan Kumar, he's saying what are the implication would be if Iran somehow makes nuclear bombs in spite of Israel and USA efforts to dismantle.
That I think we can leave to Ambassador. Let him.
Ambassador Srivastava, would you like to comment on this? You need to unmute your mic.
I thought the military experts are better equipped to comment on it. Let me just comment on the regional reactions. And in case Iran acquires nuclear weapons, I'm treating it as a purely hypothetical possibility because there has been no indication of change in Iranian position, no indication from the Iran's top leadership, though, as I mentioned earlier, there must be strong views in Iran about this option. The regional reaction would be manifest across the Gulf, and the Gulf states would also like to have the nuclear weapon capacity. There could be a very interesting reaction on Iran's eastern flank, and that is Pakistan. Pakistan prides itself as being the only Muslim country which has nuclear weapons, and it doesn't like to lose that status. So we'll have to see which way it goes.
Okay, we have a question from DG also.
Can I just make one point on this issue?
There is another question you can see, and then you can combine those and you can make it. I'll just read the other question. It says, nation desired to be nuclear, the big conclusion, and will become a rallying point, making Iran, even in this state, a tough customer to deal with. Now, VP Singh, you wanted to comment, so you can take both the things and speak.
Yeah. So firstly, nobody is under any illusion that to deter Iran from going nuclear, it requires humongous amount of effort. But what I want to flag are 2 points. One, that to the best of my knowledge, countries have gone nuclear rather openly, I would say. And there was no power which was resisting any other country to not to go nuclear. They were seeing it is happening. They couldn't do anything about it. I'm talking about starting from North Korea to Pakistan to India to anybody else. Here, Iran is just one case, not only America and Israel, because of the obvious reasons, many neighborhood countries and the entire Middle East and many powers in the world, they just don't want Iran to go nuclear. Now, it is something like a big challenge for a country to push for nuclear, and almost 2/3 of the world is saying, no, you cannot. So that is, I'm just leaving that point over there. I have also heard this issue, point this number of times, that Iran was highly constrained, that the agreements were almost there. The question that I want to ask is this: if Iran was constrained and the negotiations were going well, how come it went from 3.5% permissible enrichment to 60% while negotiating and keeping everybody busy with the talks? It cannot happen like that. In fact, Donald Trump's statement was, it is perhaps John Kerry who agreed allowing Iran to have 3.4% or something enrichment facility. He said, as far as I'm concerned, it should be 0%. And of course, there are alternatives available for Iran to seek peaceful use of nuclear weapon. That the enriched uranium can lie somewhere else and it can be shipped to Iran as and when required, and those kind of arrangements. But this sense, or rather this pleading of innocence, that actually I'm engaging in talk and I don't want to go nuclear and I'm NPT signatory and all that, I think it is all a big screen, including the fatwa by Khomeini. It's a big screen. Because if you just look behind the Iran's strategy, overall, it's very simple that it has 3-4 prongs. One is they want to bleed Israel white by proxies, number one. Number two, using the geographical separation between Iran and Israel, they wanted to preserve their combat stamina, never wanted to get entangled directly with Israel and let others bleed Israel. Of course, avoid a direct military confrontation with Israel, and under the cover of all that, relentlessly pursue their nuclear program, which, like I mentioned, that for the 15-20 years, Americans have been following them, and keep upgrading their missile capability. So what this strike has done is caused damage, I don't know how much, and of course, the missile building, manufacturing capability of Iran has been literally destroyed, as we hear. This has been a big setback. Now, the last point that I want to mention is this, that who is going to talk in Iran? Well, I can only cite some examples from history. The negotiations actually have happened between the victors and the vanquished, not with anybody else. No negotiation takes place between winner and winner. So Japan was brought to its knees when the negotiation started, and very, very humiliating. Germany was on its knees when the negotiation got concluded. So I am of the view that Iran, as USA and Israel had decided to use the hard power, will be brought to its knees, if I use the word, and of course thereafter negotiation. Otherwise, if Iran has got all the strength with them, why should it negotiate? And as far as this looking for this 400 kg, I am sure people are at work, and sooner or later we'll hear about it, how it happens and what it happens. Last point about this, if Iran goes nuclear, well, I really cannot conjecture on that, can't decide. But if I just go by that same statement, before Iran goes nuclear, somebody should know about it. And if the whole world is looking at Iran not go nuclear, I don't know how it happen, maybe. That's it.
I think in future we'll come to know what are the positions, we'll know exactly what is happening, and because geopolitics nowadays is very unpredictable. But one last question we'll take, because we are going out of the this thing time, because it's very interesting. Manovsan, he wants to ask, how did Asim, this Muni's visit with Trump affect Iran, their events? What did Pak get in return? Why is Pak developing ICBM, and will US allow this? After Iran's nuclear program, will Pak nuclear program be targeted next? So anyone wants to take this, because this was in the news also today about the Pak's developing ICBM, and US may not allow that, and that part was there. So anyone wanted to, Ambassador, we can ask Ambassador Srivastava and then Jalal Bhaduria or Deep Singh, anybody wanted to ask.
Thank you, Roshan. I have already explained in some detail about the backdrop of Muni's visit and the payoffs in terms of IMF, generously releasing, not only releasing money for under existing commitments, but making fresh commitments. why should Indians be so excited about Iran's going nuclear? Our problem is with China and Pakistan. They have already gone nuclear and the West accepted it. I was Joint Secretary UN Political at the time of Pokhran 2 nuclear tests. And I don't claim that I had any inkling. I must confess, I was completely out of the loop so far as original decision making was concerned, but I was part of every step of diplomatic firefighting after the tests. And I recall that within 6 months after the nuclear tests, US had relaxed sanctions against Pakistan and at the same time deepened sanctions against India. So I find it rather touching to believe that US will take any action against Pakistan's ICBM capabilities. First of all, I don't think Pakistan is attempting any such capabilities because they have only one aim, and they keep saying this again and again and again. So why should we ignore what they are saying openly? So coming back to the future, it's very difficult to say what Pakistan will do. What it has already done is damaging enough. It has integrated nuclear weapons in its war-fighting doctrine. Nuclear weapons are not for deterrence, they are for actually fighting war. And the past three crises, that is brass tacks in 87, Zarbe moment 2 years later in 89, Kargil in 1999, and of course the fourth one was Operation Parakram. And the fifth one was, after deletion of Article 57, Pakistan rattled nuclear weapons at the beginning of the cycle. It was nuclear weapons are supposed to be weapons of last resort. And here's a country threatening use of nukes as in the first instance. And the first two examples I gave of brass tacks and Zarbe moment in 87 and 89, Pakistan was not even a declared nuclear weapon state. So, we have to be very cautious about what Pakistan has, what Pakistan will do. And the last point I want to make is that Pakistan combines its nuclear weapon capacity with ideology, which nobody else did. Both sides during the Cold War kept ideology and nuclear deterrence separate. So you are looking at a very explosive mix of the two in case of Pakistan, and that is why I'm submitting that we need not be carried by this Western narrative about Iran. We should focus on the dire problem that we have on our western flank of an imploding state with nukes and combining nukes with ideology.
We had okay. Last comment from General Budhwani.
I just wish to make a very short point, man. Firstly, is like Master said, Iran is feeling that Pakistanis backstabbed them. Iranians are not going to forget it, in fact, right? The Shia-Sunni divide has always been there. There have been airstrikes in 2024 also from Iranian side, from Pakistani side. Right? So that strategic depth which Pakistan used to always look for, so like Iran, this thing has happened, and also with Afghanistan, their relations are not great. So therefore, I think we should be feeling a little more safer. That is point number one. Then second is that news about US saying that China can buy energy from Iran. Now that may give us an opening that we can also do business with China, with Iran. Like in Master said, Iran is very important for us. INSTC.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, so we at one point in time we were thinking probably all these this is lost to us, at least in the short term. I personally feel it might not, right, because Trump is not taking Katsa so seriously. In case he was, then he would not have permitted China to buy energy, when he's saying that you must buy energy from US because they are one of the largest exporters of energy, right? So these are the two aspects which I wanted to highlight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank all our panelists. It was a very interesting podcast, and uh, we are going to observe how the things pan out, and we are in the interesting time. So, thank you all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Master. Thank you, General VP Singh.
Thank you.
Thank you.